predates the Hecht House. When I was growing up in the West End, living at 30 Garden Street, and the Vilna Shul was on Phillip Street, around the corner from 30 Garden Street, ran up and down the hill, and Phillip Street ran across. And the Vilna Shul was around the corner. I really didn't go inside the Vilna Shul except on the high holidays. But during the year, the Vilna Shul was very much a part of our lives because there were two big concrete columns outside with kind of fancy styrations on them. And we used to play ball against those columns and hit the ball. And if you hit the projection in the right place, you could get a home run out into the street. And the shamas used to come out periodically and kick us away and then go back inside, and we would go right back and continue playing ball. So, as I said, my experience was outside the Vilna Shul. Then on the high holidays, we would go inside, and I remember the Vilna Shul because, in the first place, all the men wore felt hats, and they usually wore their coats, and it was usually very hot and steamy, and it smelled pretty good in there because bathing was not as popular then as it is today, especially when there were so many buildings where more than one family shared a bathroom, and hot water was obtained by dropping a quarter in the meter that would let the gas go on to heat up the hot water. But I remember going in for the services, and this was pre-bar mitzvah. And the big thing in those days, there were visiting cantors. These were world-famous cantors like Pinchik, who only used one name, and Yossele Rosenblatt, and these cantors would travel on the high holidays. They would sing at different shuls, and they would get a lot of money, and the shuls would raise money to pay them. And the shul that got the most famous cantor was the most prestigious shul. But I'm sorry to say that the thing I remember most about the shul on the high holidays was when they made the annual appeal for money, and the members of the congregation would make pledges by holding up fingers or nodding their heads, and every time somebody made a pledge, the president would call out their name and the amount, like he'd say, Joe Cohen, $10, and then he'd say, Sam Rosenberg, $100, and everybody would go, you know. But the biggest thing that I remember was that as kids, we could never figure out how they knew who pledged what. And we thought that, well, they can't be recording it because it's Yontif. They wouldn't be using electricity, and they wouldn't be writing it because you don't write on the high holidays. And there's somebody hiding inside the bimah and writing this down, and we could never figure it out. And it wasn't until later years that we realized that it was all a matter of honor. If you pledged, you paid. And I'm pretty certain that the president and the members of the board of directors knew who paid and who didn't pay, and if somebody didn't pay, I'm sure they got after them. But this was the most boring part of the whole holiday services. It used to take, as I recall, on Yom Kippur afternoon, all afternoon, maybe 3 or 4 hours, and these people, and it would slow down, and the president would make another part of his speech about how much they needed the money, and then somebody would raise his hand, it would be Joe Schmo, $25, you know, and it would go on and on and on. And I'm sorry to say, that's the biggest part of what I remember about the high holidays at the Vilna Shul. I remember there were pews, not seats, and the women sat upstairs, and the bimah was in the middle of the room, as opposed to one end the way it is in the conservative shuls today. It was an Orthodox shul. Like most of the shuls in the West End at that time were Orthodox shuls. We could, my reading of Hebrew was rudimentary, to say the least, and we could never figure out where they were anyhow, because they would be reading it so fast, and nobody would ever announce a page number or anything. They would just zip through a section, and then a lot of pages, and then do another section, a lot of pages, and I was really not aware of everything that was going on
You
there.
can never tell who that is.
But it was a growing up experience that I would never want to have missed.
Oh, good.
Cut.
Now,
Cut.
Can
Okay.
I say something about
Yes,
that?
Mom.